I feel great today. The sun is shining, the sky is blue, the grass is green, everything is just hunky-dory. I wonder if I'm sharing this feeling with anyone. If anyone, say, one of my friends from the other side of the aisle are feeling the same way. So let's check in on the left to see how they're doing. Well, if that isn't just the cherry on top for me. Man, watching leftists screech about abortion has been my favorite pastime over the past 24 hours, and they have given me much cringe, much coping, and much seething to delight in over the past 24 hours. And why have they been doing this? Well, simple. It's because a Supreme Court draft decision was leaked to Politico 24 hours ago-ish, about abortion. In specific, overturning Roe v. Wade. In no uncertain terms, thank you, Alito, though it doesn't forgive completely for my torture when it came to actually listening to the oral arguments in that case. Oh, it was so bad. It almost makes up for it, but not quite. It was still awful. And I sadly would do it again. Oh, because I'm a glutton for punishment. But leftists have been screeching about this, and it's been very fun to watch. I have been very, very happy to see leftists screech about women's rights and all of that sort of hogwash and garbage and lies, and talking about that sort of stuff. But interestingly, in all of the discussion about this particular decision, I have been missing one thing. Any actual legal argument defending Roe v. Wade. Because the closest you'll get to that on the left is when they talk about things like precedent, stare decisis, and all that, where they say, well, Roe v. Wade has been the law of the land for 50 years, and overturning it is a bad, and it's more unprecedented than leaking an entire Supreme Court draft decision, even though the second one hasn't happened ever, and the first one's happened 200-something times in the history of the court. Because, let's be honest, in reality, leftists don't care about precedents or anything like that. Realize, these are the same people who are still going after the Colorado baker who refused to bake a gay wedding cake, despite the fact that his case went up all the way to the Supreme Court, and they got precedent proving that he was completely in the right. And now they are continually maliciously going after this one dude because he didn't go along with their ideological priors. They don't actually care about precedent, all right? When it comes to judicial decisions, leftists treat them like referendums, in the sense that any referendum or judicial decision that doesn't go the left ways is illegitimate, and anything that does go the left's way, is completely immaculate, completely undoable, and should never change ever in the future. And that has been their major argument against this particular overturning of Roe v. Wade. Well, it doesn't seem like it's gonna work though, because, well, they have been lying far too much. And there has been a lot of lying from the left, as it is their primary preoccupation to just simply lie about every single thing they could possibly even try to do. A good example of this is how much they've lied to themselves about both their own position on abortion and the right's position on abortion. Because, well, there have been far too many examples of basic misunderstandings of the pro-life position coming out of the left over the past 24 hours for there to be any other explanation. Because we've gone over, once again, the whole leftist rediscovering abstinence thing, and we've also rediscovered the leftists continually projecting their own racism onto the right sort of thing. And we've also gone over things like, well, if you aren't in favor of Roe v. Wade, why are you in favor of judicial review? To which the obvious answer is, I'm not. And there have been so many of these. It's been another source of great funny to me. But I want to make a point here, in that leftists lie constantly. And these people are not doing it on accident. People aren't looking at Republicans or aren't talking about the right doing things like, oh, yes, they're instituting fascism because they don't want babies to be murdered, or they're violating women's rights because they don't want, because they think that babies shouldn't be murdered. Once again, And they, or saying that we're instituting fascism because you don't want to groom children with LGBT ideology, and all of that. These are all malicious lies. They know they're not telling the truth because, let's be frank, going back on Roe v. Wade is not a radical decision. It's a conservative decision. And let me make the argument, because frankly, there has been a vast portion of history that has been completely ignored in all of the precedence argument regarding the Roe v. Wade case. Because in reality, America and legal precedents did not start 49 years ago. It was not like there was no legal precedence for the outlaw or non-outlaw of abortion before the year 1973. There was entire centuries, not just of America, but also of common law, which much of our legal system, in particular case law, is based on, that also has precedence regarding abortion. And guess what? In most of those cases, in fact, basically all of them, as is very clearly established in the Alito draft, abortion was considered to be nominally illegal. And if not that, at least something that was up to the states. And that's what the reality is. In reality, we were just taking about a 50-year sabbatical from sanity in order to allow abortion to genocide babies, in particular, of course, black babies, because that's the whole point of abortion. And on that subject, there's this very interesting parallel going on here now, because, well, what we have is, in the case of abortion, we have a movement that was begun by people who were attempting to institute an awful evil in the name of eugenics and a genocide against black babies and disabled and all those sorts of things. Everything you would expect from a eugenicist, right? That then goes on for decades and decades to become a bit more of a movement and a force in the American society, which then has its entire argument decided by a legal decision, which it massively jumps up the popularity of said position in the next coming years or so. Going into the 1990s, we have an increase in the abortions and also the popularity of the pro-choice position, which I would say peaks in the 1990s with the Clinton administration. And then it drops off going into the next few decades, where eventually it gets overturned, and the entire position of the argument is actually revealed to be demonic and evil. I wonder if there's any other political movement we could compare this to, such as maybe a political movement that was started by a pedophile that became more of a movement in the coming years, which was then later decided on by the courts, which by making up law out of thin air, which then peaked at a certain point after that, a few years afterwards, which then revealed to be a demonic basically ritual to sacrifice children to, which is leading to the downfall of said movement and will eventually lead to the overturning and complete destruction of the movement. I wonder what else we could compare this to. It's very interesting, you see, because there's a lot of parallels between this and, say, the school and parental rights discussion that's been going on over the past year, with many people on the defeatist right talking about how if we do this and the court doing this is going to ruin the midterms, the Democrats are going to win if you actually do something. Where, of course, they said the exact same sorts of things going back a year ago about parental rights when it came to things like LGBT grooming. And guess what happened? Well, the choice went the way of the actual optimistic right, which I would claim I'm on, and the actual let's go and do things right, which I am on. Which is very interesting, and it might end up showing a bit of an insight into the future, because in reality, Roe v. Wade was an empty decision. And abortion in general is an empty moral framework, because there is no reasonable justification for killing a baby. Period. There is no justification that could possibly be done. And you can say, oh, what about rape? What about incest and all that sort of stuff? But I will raise you Do you just get to murder the children of a murderer or of a rapist if they're born? No, of course not. They're not culpable. All right? Two wrongs do not make a right. In that case, it's just an example of emotional blackmail. It's no different than someone threatening suicide if to their lover if they break up with them or something like that. It's the same sorts of thing. It's abusive, it's utterly nonsensical, and you shouldn't fall for it. None of this stuff works. And also, it's a massive minority of these of abortions in general. It's less than 1%. It's almost a non-issue in reality, especially when compared to the massive majority of abortion, which is basically convenience. That's the reality of abortion. It is a convenience matter. Or, in the case of some more pro-abortion advocates, it's a demonic ritual. Or they would call it sacred, because they're pagans. That's what it is. And they are always lying about it. They're always going to lie about it. And they're constantly claiming that it's about women's rights and all that sort of stuff. And really, all of that just leaves me with the question, what is a woman? And that's where I'm going to leave you guys off. If you liked this video, do check out my other platforms and subscribe down below. I'm on BitChute, I'm on Brighteon, I'm on Odyssey, I'm on Rumble, and all of those links are down in the description. Also, check out my Minds Gab and my Parler page. All of those are down there, and also my Getter. I'm KelKidman. This has been Breaking on the Daily. Don't be square.